Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is Stephen Campbell, a domain investor turned domain developer of flipwebdomains.com, nocodemakers.com, and the recently launched virtualghostwriter.com. Today, Stephen and I discuss the economic challenges of buying and selling domains while residing in Jamaica. We also discuss how he got his start into the domain industry and what it was like working at Epik as a territory manager. Stephen also shares why and how he chose to pivot from domain investing to domain developing for now. Last but not least, Stephen reveals how recently launching a monthly recurring subscription business for ghostwriting services, all while having not written one line of code. And so, with that, Stephen, welcome, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Alvin, thanks for having me. It's so great to be here. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Likewise. Thanks for coming on to share your story. So to kick things off, Stephen, briefly share at a high level with our listeners a bit about yourself, who you are, your personal and professional background.
So as you introduced, I'm Stephen Campbell, born, bred Jamaican, chemical and process engineer, Bachelor of Science. That's my degree program. Not sure what I'm doing on your podcast, but that's where it is. 3 years in the process industry, transition from that, left that to pursue this dream of internet entrepreneurship, working from home. There must be something out there. What is it? So I left that and stumbled onto domain names as the first thing that I saw on the web that could possibly be an avenue to make money online.
Interesting. So how did you make, or when did you make that pivot from, I guess, the process engineering or the chemical engineering background to domain names? Like, what year was that?
So in late 2018, I was working still in the process industry and, had this overwhelming feeling that, there was something more out there. Started doing some research online, how do you make money online? What is it? Stumbled onto e-commerce, drop shipping, selling stuff, selling products online. But being in Jamaica, there would be a shipping challenge. Buying products, storing it here, carrying it into Jamaica, and then shipping it again overseas. Or even drop shipping, where some persons would have you to hold inventory, or you need some amount of capital, or you need some amount of development background to get started with dropshipping. So stumbled onto this website, nichepursuit.com.
Spencer Haas.
Yeah. And this guy had an article, how to make money selling domain names. And, I was familiar with the concept of domain names. I registered a domain name while in, university, thinking to start a chemical ebook selling website. Didn't know the first thing about websites, but I registered chemebooks.info. And, that's how I came across the concept of domain names. But back to the blog post that I read, he was saying, you can register domain names, put it on a marketplace and sell them. And in that post, they were quoting some crazy figures, different domain names that sold, sex.com, porno.com, property.com, some of these big names that sold for a lot of money. So I was saying, hey, maybe this is a possibility. So I started to think about how I could register a few domain names and sell them before morning. So I got on to GoDaddy, signed up, and I registered a domain name based on what I was passionate about at the time. That was, machine learning, AI, and I thought it was trending, so maybe someone else would have thought of this idea. So I went ahead and I registered neural networks and machine learning.com. That's a long domain. And I was like, any moment now, somebody will want to buy this from me. Any moment now. So that's where it started with my first registration and seeing that blog post online.
Well, did that any moment ever come, or are we still waiting for that thing to sell?
that name expired long time ago.
So you let that little birdie fly away then.
Yeah, that one got away.
So moving from there, so when it didn't sell, I guess kind of what was your thought process? Did you go out and buy more domains, or was it, what was your thought process?
So by this time, I was, looking for, some guidance on domain names. Somebody must have done it before. I looked on Amazon and I found an ebook, How to Get Rich Selling Domain Names. And I, bought that ebook for a few dollars. And it mentioned a few names, Rick Schwartz, Frank Schilling, Uniregistry, and all these guys, the Melon guy, and
Right.
all these guys from the ebook. And I set out to find them. What were they doing online today? So I stumbled onto Rick on Twitter, and I got into the domain investing community on Twitter. And by this time, I found out that my strategy was kind of off. So I had by that time I registered quite a few other names, and my strategy was off. So I kind of took a pause early 2019 now, and I'm taking a pause on domain names and fully transitioning from my job now and going into WordPress site development. So that same neural networks and machine learning.com, that was still in the first year, and I built a WordPress site on top of it. And
Uh,
that was a process of learning WordPress, using Elementor and these nice themes. So there was some amount of fun that I got from that. So it was now domain names and WordPress site development that I had on my belt, under my belt, learning domain names now from the community on Twitter.
Now, how did you go about learning? I mean, I guess, were you engaging on Twitter? Now, had you stumbled up on Name Pros by then or other blogs?
Definitely. Saw DN Forum, Name Pros, a lot of the other registrars, popular registrars had representatives. Cedar had like Dave, and you had Morgan and all these guys writing blog posts. Yourself, I found you eventually as well. And I stumbled onto quite a few domain name websites, and not many podcasts were around at the time. I didn't hear any content, but I saw domain name Wire and all these popular guys, and I started reading. So
Mm.
listening to these guys passively, and every domainer starts posting the names on Twitter, like buy from me. I still have an email that has not yet been sent, and it's to domainking@gmail.com. And I was like, hey, I'm a young investor. You're gonna buy this name from me, but the email has not yet been sent. So it's trying to get these investors to buy names from me, thinking that any day now someone is gonna buy one of these names on Twitter.
Now, most domain investors will typically, if they obviously you ran out and you did the very thing that most of us go do when we first start, which is we start buying names and things that we think sound good, look good, and
That's it.
sometimes we get it right, and a bunch of times we get it wrong. Now, in your case, though, like I was saying, I was going more towards the side of most domain investors will typically start a bit closer to home, so more local. But in your case of having being based in Jamaica, now you have some economic challenges that are there that don't necessarily work to your advantage because not many people actually use a domain there, right?
So that's the thing. It became very clear to me that a majority of the space was controlled by the USA. You know, and a simple thing as Google Analytics pointed to it. If you set up a random WordPress site, a majority of the traffic will come from USA. And
Hmm.
searching different forums from Jamaica, I wasn't seeing anybody talking about domain names. I even did a deep dive on Google to find Jamaican domainer, Jamaican domain name, and I wasn't finding anything until I stumbled onto this old tech forum, and I saw this one guy talking about domain names. Found him on Twitter, found him on LinkedIn, and I said, hey, we're gonna do this thing. But I found out that he was in the domain industry maybe in the early 2000s. He sells domains passively and not really into the space, and that this was the only guy I knew. So I kind of felt on my own. What became clear to me as well was that brand awareness in terms of naming companies and naming a website, it wasn't very important in Jamaica, because why I say that is this. I'm sure you have some Jamaican listeners. Whenever you have a company name, the name is there. For example, Jamaican clothing. You won't be able to get JamaicanClothing.com. So you get JamaicanClothingJA.com. So I saw a lot of that, or JamaicanClothingJM.com. It became clear that domain names weren't the first thing. You wouldn't spend $100, $100 on a domain name as a Jamaican. If you can't register it, it's gone. So I was in a space by myself, and I was wanting to prove that it was possible to sell domain names as a Jamaican, and then, show others how to do it.
Right. Now, did you try or have any attempts at trying to sell, for instance, like geoservice names? So like I live in Austin, and let's say something like Austin Tax Expert or AustinTaxExperts.com. Did you try to do something or sell in a way that was more, I guess, local focused?
I never tried that, because growing up and just the knowledge of the culture and how we are, and we are not very much into the digital space, contacting somebody randomly online, or even seeing them face to face and saying, I'm going to sell you a domain name, it just seemed absurd. And then to ask a price, say I'm asking $1,000. That's about $150,000 locally. And, some persons get that as a full month's salary. To ask that was kind of absurd. So I never went that route. So my target audience was American, Europeans, even Chinese in the Chinese market. So that became my target audience.
Wow. So then the local economy, the door was kind of shut there because of just cultural differences, just monetary differences or challenges. And so then obviously you went out, you purchased these domains. Then I guess, how did you get or try to break into the US market?
The first name I got an inquiry on was browsertraffic.com.
Nice.
Right? Browser traffic, I hand registered that in the first few months and put it on Cedo. I got an inquiry from a Chinese person. It was actually an inquiry to purchase, but it never went through. So I said, okay, there's interest. Somebody else must need this name.
Right.
So I went on to eBay, posted the name on eBay, put it up for a few dollars, and it sold, I think, close to expiry, it sold about $10 or something like that. And
wow.
I was like, yeah, $10, just a few cents on registration. That's profit. I must be able to sell $100 name. So that was the first proof that it was possible, right, to get a greater sale.
Now, during this time that you're, I guess, testing, now, did you have a daytime job during that time? Or were you just full in domain investing?
So this was me breaking into the online space and being convinced that, hey, I want to get the start in domain names. And it was possible, because I see these sales being reported every day on Twitter. Somebody selling something for 4 figures. That's going to be me one of these days, but being 6 months in, not making anything significant, I started to question it, but I wasn't doing anything else. I had savings from my previous job, and I was living from that, and I was doing some amount of investment. I made a decision that maybe I should develop one of these names, try the drop shipping thing. I did maternitymatters.com, my wife and myself. So we developed that site to break into the maternity industry, as a drop shipper. We got the name from Afternic, spent a good investment on getting that name, did the site, reached out to some suppliers, and actually got some persons on board. But what happened was that we didn't do enough research in this space. So we were contacting other Americans and they were saying, hey, we would prefer if you have a brick and mortar setup. So you could buy enough inventory or branding.
Yeah, they wanted you to carry the inventory. They wanted you to take on
Yeah.
more expense.
Yeah. So they say, hey, we already have our brand out there. You need to do something. So that kind of went on pause after a while. So that became confusing. So how do I earn sitting on these domain names? This site that I just made an investment in not working out, what to do next. So I started searching for a job after that, online job.
And so you searched for an online job. Now, did you go back to the process engineering, or what did you do? Or what were you exactly looking for?
So I was searching locally as well, made a number of applications, even in many countries across the world. But I said maybe I have this experience in domain names, e-commerce. I can build WordPress sites, maybe apply for online job to work from home. And
Right.
I kind of started sending out applications and getting email addresses. And there was this one Telegram channel that we were in. It's run by Daryl. Daryl, yeah, from Twitter. And in the talk group, we had Rob Monster. I found out he was the CEO of Epik. So I reached out to him in chat. I said, hey, I have this name. I want you to help me to sell. You're the CEO of a registrar. It was a first name, last name. And when I sent him the name, he said, hey, I know this person. Let me try to sell the name for you. And it didn't work. So I said, okay, I have skills. I've been in the industry a while. I have this site, flipwebdomains.com. I write blogs. I have built a couple WordPress sites. I would work for you. I like the vision at Epik. I've seen you guys on Name Pros. I realize you want some brand ambassadors, country managers. Let me work for you. And he asked me to send him an email. I sent an email, and within a few days, I got the job. I got the job working at Epik, and the title was Territory Manager of the Americas.
So then kind of expound on that a little bit. Like what does, because I see the title from time to time with different people, whether it's in, Name Pros or on LinkedIn, like what does a territory manager actually do at Epik?
The vision of Epik is to take the company global. Every service that they offer, they want everybody to be able to, make use of the services, whether it's hosting, free WordPress, domain name management, a lot of services that they do offer. It's challenging for someone in, say, let's say a third world country to make use of that service. The vision was to try to get global reach. So the responsibility is to find persons who would need to use services from Epik and get them on board, or persons who are already using Epik services in regions. For say my region, Haiti had a few persons. Jamaica had very few persons who registered domain names. But to get these persons engaged, offer them services, and get more persons on board, like engagement, onboarding customers, and and ensure that they are happy.
Right. And so you started that position, I guess, at what, the beginning of 2020?
Yeah, in January, at the end of January 2020, I started at Epik in that position. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then obviously COVID hit. And so I guess now were you impacted by that, or were you able to stay on, or?
Massively impacted by that because we had a plan, a 90-day plan to roll out a lot of programs in Jamaica to get Jamaica engaged. And it would have required some underground work. But COVID hit, by March, thereabout, a lot of the travel was restricted, and a lot of fear mongering was happening, and it kind of shifted things. So that plan got messed up. But I decided that maybe, although that's not working out, there's more I could offer. So I got into customer support at Epik and made myself available to work, 5 days a week, about 7 hours per day, just, helping out with customer support while still seeing what I could do as a territory manager.
Awesome. Now, how much did you learn about the business, and did it impact your ability or level you up in terms of a domain investor?
So being in the back end kind of changed my mind completely on what was possible on the internet. Like,
How so?
it it's mind blowing, because when you see regular persons, regular people, because as a customer support person, when you see big transactions, you want to know, who is this person? And some of them are on social media, some of them are on LinkedIn, and you talk to them in chats, and they, you have a good engagement, and they say, hey, let's connect. And a part of managing customers is keeping them engaged. And these regular people have these massive deals, and it happens every day. It's a world that is hidden from the average person, and it's simply domain names. Being a part of helping with escrow transactions, brokering and so on. You see things that kind of let you feel that what you were doing before was nothing. You're actually doing nothing. Work, going out to work is good, and it fulfills the purpose for which you studied, and it aligns with your passion.
Right.
But you will never be able to see income in that, no matter how high you go as a CEO. Even if you reach this level of a CEO, you'll never be able to see income like these guys who have some amount of knowledge about stuff that you don't. And it was really amazing. So that changed my mind on what was possible, and got me thinking maybe I could do something like this. Maybe it was possible to actually work from home and make a decent enough income to sustain me.
I guess during this time, like how large was or how large is your portfolio today?
So today I have about 200, a little over 200 names, most of them hand registrations. I've acquired a couple here and there from investors, bought a few of some marketplaces, but a little over 200 names, currently managed all over the place. I've managed to sell a few, none of them exceeding $1,000 yet. I've gotten pretty close up there. I've sold a name for $800 once. And that kind of opened my mind. I hadn't registered the name, and within 7 to 14 days, it was sold. So
And was that doing outbound?
that wasn't the outbound. So I had up a landing page, and it just sold overnight. I just woke up and saw the sale.
You had to buy it now, sell then.
Yeah, so it was pretty good. It was pretty good. So that's what I'm working with now.
He's like, bring me more of those sales, please, and thank you.
Yeah.
Says every domain investor. So with what you were able to see, obviously in terms of your time there at Epik, which you're no longer there, but how has that impacted how you go forward, your thought process in terms of purchasing domains today? Has it changed quite drastically? And if so, how?
Okay, so it became obvious that my strategy was all wrong. I have 200 names. I wouldn't say they're all worthless, but I would say it would take a long time for them to sell with sizable value. Take quite a long time. And I initially, before, I had somewhat of an outbound strategy, so I'd reach out to companies and so on. But being at Epik and seeing what happens, and talking to a few investors, reading stuff and seeing what they're doing, my strategy kind of changed. So I just settled on the view that, hey, these names won't sell right now. Try to find another way of getting an income. And then registrations cost money.
Right.
You need to renew names, the good ones, the ones that I thought were good, and the ones that I still think are very good. I have to renew them. Not being at Epik, where Epik was providing that income to balance my portfolio, it presented a new problem. So I was thinking, what should I do? I'm sold on domain names. I know that domain names can bring that income, but how do I get the better domain names? How do I get the capital to get those better domain names? Because my strategy is off. Hand registration names are worth something, yes, but not like what we're seeing every day. You won't. It's my belief that you won't necessarily sell hand registrations at a turnover in terms of the price that would, be sizable unless you have a very large portfolio. And then the expenses with that is, very hard to manage. So I had a capital problem, and I needed to solve that.
So the capital problem. So essentially, you stepped in with hand registrations, and then, as you've alluded to now, it became a capital problem,
Yeah.
and so that basically shut the door, or rather, held you back from actually participating in some of the domain auctions, because we all know these auctions that are starting at 50, 60, $75 are getting into the hundreds or thousands, in certain cases. And so you couldn't necessarily play the game there. And so with the hand reg is really a longer game, to a certain extent. Especially if you're not going to do outbound. If you're going to do buy it now, yeah, you essentially at the mercy of waiting for the right buyer to come along.
Yeah.
And so then, I guess, knowing that, okay, well, right now I'm not going to be able to do domain investing, or I just kind of hold what I have.
Right.
You obviously have, to support you, your wife, your family. And so the reality is, like, what did that lead you to do next?
So I did a lot of thinking. What am I doing with myself? I'm
What am I doing with my life?
yeah, I'm an engineer. Should I go back out to work? What should I really do? And all this time, I haven't closed the door on any of the options
Right.
that could have presented themselves. But I was thinking, why not use the skills that I have? What skills do I have to offer that someone would find valuable? Someone would pay me money for that. And then I was on Twitter one day, and I saw a domain sale reported. The name wasn't given, but a guy said, I sold a no-code related domain name for $3,500. I was like, okay, what's no-code? I've never heard that before. So I did some Google search, went into Google keyword tool, and tried to find out what this no-code was. And I saw that this was a booming industry, but I've never heard any domain investor talk about no-code, or talk about selling a no-code name. So I was like, this guy is outside of the industry and he's selling it. I'm ahead of the game. These domain investors don't know about no code. So I better register some no code related domain names. So I started doing a little bit more research on what no code was. I saw them on Twitter. I realized they call themselves makers. I was seeing a lot of hashtags, no code makers, hashtag no code. So I went to look for this name, nocodemakers.com, realized that it was registered. Had a done landing page up, and I just reached out. I want this name because this name is probably one of the better names in that industry. And just remembering, a tweet from Rick that said, if you have a name that is valuable in a particular industry, you get a seat at the table. So this name is not the best name, but I know it's worth a seat at the table.
Right.
Yeah. So this guy was selling the name for a little over $100. Eventually, we negotiated, and he told me that he had a previous offer just the same week, and that kind of motivated me like crazy to get the name. And that's the next point I learned about domain investing. I sold a name after that, and someone came in and said, hey, I want to buy this name. And I told the person, I have previous interest, which I did. And the person went at the name very quickly, just as how I was going at this name. So eventually I acquired the name and just set up a Twitter page, No Code Makers. And followers started to come in. And I started to study the space to see what this NoCode Space was about, and found out that I was already doing no code. I was developing WordPress sites without writing code. It was on WordPress. I wasn't using these other tools, but that's the definition of what I am. I'm a maker, a no-code maker. So I said, I found it. This is it. This is what I have to do to generate capital to get the domain names that I need.
So then this no code notion then, so one, I just kind of work in simple blocks here, but I look and say, okay, well, Stephen doesn't have a background of software development. So I'm assuming that's where the no code part comes in.
Right.
But then the maker part is very much like you alluded to, is you're creating websites or applications of some sort without ever having coded. But then in my mind, I'm saying, well, wait, is that even possible? And obviously you're telling me, yes, it is, because people are out here doing it. It's a whole industry there. And so how does no code work?
Right. So that's an interesting question. So how the web works is you have to have code. Someone does the coding.
Right.
So you have editors and app builders, and WordPress is, a blog site. Someone does the coding, but not you, the creator.
So then let me ask you this. Are you talking more about like drag and drop widgets and workflows and different things like that?
Precisely. So no code in a sense that it's not that no code happens. It's just that the person with the idea who can clearly, I wouldn't say articulate, but can clearly express
Right.
that idea, they can do it without having to think about the hurdle of learning to code. So some code happens, but it's not me. And I find that is very valuable, because if I can code, I'm already limited, because learning something keeps me in a box. I want to do it like this. I have to do it like this. This is how the documentation says, bam, bam, bam. You don't do this. You don't do that. But a creator kind of says, okay, this doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I just need this tool to do it. And what you'll find happening is that some amazing creations and ideas come out that I would say a non-creative person and a more technical person wouldn't be able to express very well.
So then you buy nocodemakers.com, and then what happens?
So I'm on Twitter managing my domain name account, kind of on sabbatical with domain names and studying this NoCode Space, and something crazy happened. I reached to about 200 plus followers, 300 followers, and I get an inquiry. Somebody's asking me to do marketing. So I'm just checking, is this paid marketing? And I say, yes, we'll pay you. So okay, I'm a social media manager now. I got paid to send tweets out and to retweet someone else's post. And when I checked it out, I had less followers than that company. And it was crazy, because is it that the name No Code Makers and just, tweeting on Twitter, getting familiar with the space and having engagement and getting the impressions on my tweets, that has now become valuable to somebody. And I now have a seat at the table. No, I'm not inside. I wouldn't say I was inside the no-code space per se, but kind of on the fringes, seeing what was possible. And then I stumbled onto an app, Bubble. And because I kind of had some friction, because I knew WordPress, I'm telling myself that, yes, I'm a no-code maker. I know WordPress very well. I can give you an e-commerce site. I can do a personal profile page. I'll stick to WordPress and still be a part of his no-code space. But I saw a person talking about his Bubble. So I signed up for Bubble, realized that it's a paid thing. You can't launch an app with a domain name itself without paying. So I said, hey, let me apply to their, Immerse program. I did, wasn't successful, but they say, Stephen, use the app for free on the personal plan, the paid plan, for 2 months. And I thought that this has to be an opportunity to build something meaningful.
So you're managing the account for No Code Makers. You're getting people basically coming up to you, and now you've become a digital strategist or digital marketing strategist. You're now making money tweeting, retweeting, posting everything to the account. And then now, had you built a website for nocodemakers.com, or it was just
Right.
strictly Twitter?
So I actually built a minimum viable product with WordPress on nocodemakers.com. So I saw that there was a lot of questions being asked because no code was around a little bit, but a lot of persons started coming on, and the COVID kind of caused that.
Right.
A lot of persons were asking questions. So and I've been on Name Pros, I've seen DN Forum. Maybe a forum would be helpful. So I found, a decent theme just to test the waters to see what would happen. Build that site, got a few signups. One person made a post, and I saw value in community, value in, fielding questions and answers. And had the website up, but it wasn't quite taking off. Persons weren't quite signing up as I wanted them to. So I realized that they prefer Twitter.
So then No Code Makers then basically, even though you set it up as a forum, but it hasn't really realized any revenue as of yet, or not as much revenue, if any, as the No Code Makers Twitter account.
Correct.
But then you said that you stumbled up on Bubble, and what was interesting, I remember in our pre-conversation, you were like, Bubble, and I was like, man, Bubble, that resonates with me for some reason. And come to find out, I'd actually stumbled up on bubble.io probably about 4 to 5 months ago, just in a different direction with a client who was basically, they were asking, little did I realize, they were asking really about to become a no-code maker to get this idea out of their head into a workable prototype. And so I was just searching, ran across bubble.io. And so that's kind of where your same story picks up. And so you stumble across bubble.io, and kind of what happens from there.
So I'm the type that likes to tinker. I don't like to read any documentation. I don't like to watch any tutorials. I just want to go on and expect it to be, intuitive.
Right.
So I went on there, and, I was stumped. I couldn't do anything, but there's this 12-part tutorial that they have that gives you an idea how to build different app concepts. So you could build a picture uploading app, and they take you through with illustrations. So I went through the 12-part tutorial, and I was like, I could do this. I know domain names. I'm going to build a no-code related domain name marketplace somewhat, where these no-code makers have these domain names, ideas, and they have the ideas and they register these domain names, but nothing is built on them.
Right.
I'm going to leverage that with my knowledge of domain names. So I registered NoCode.Domains, and I built my first Bubble application, which is just a list of domain names submitted by, random persons with no-code related domain names. And you are able to inquire or get in contact with the owner through the platform. So I stand in the middle as somewhat of a broker, for privacy reasons, and I see inquiries coming. I see persons submit domain names, and I learned a whole lot from that. So I built my first app, launched it, and to date, I have 64 domain name submissions, and it's growing. I have several inquiries through the site, and one sale came through the site. I got in touch with a guy that held a domain name nocodeNoproblem.com. That was a Twitter handle for someone else. I did a search on Twitter and realized he was looking for the domain. So I connected the two, and the sale went through via Dan. Yeah, I made some commission here, but it was just a few dollars. So I had to build something a little bit more impactful, a little bit more meaningful, that could generate some good income.
Right. So then this is interesting because I'm looking at it, NoCode.Domains. And so you have the domains listed, and looks like there is a voting system of you're either upvoting or downvoting a domain in terms of popularity, which I think is clever because obviously that's moving the good domains, if you will, up to the top, or those that receive a lot of interest. And I'm assuming here that you can likely email the contact domain owner. Now, how does the domain owner, I guess, get back in contact with the person?
So how it works, no, it's not automated. I still put myself in the middle because, privacy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a privacy form to say that I don't have those terms yet.
Right.
So I'm not
Got
going to
it.
share the owner's email address
Right.
with the person inquiring. So I'll stay in the middle. So I get those inquiries and then I reach out to the owner and say, hey, someone is interested. Here's what you can do. I can give you the contact with their permission and you pay me a commission up front, or we can do a brokering or
See.
negotiation. You understand? So that's the business model behind it.
Okay. And so then you build this no code site, but you were still itching to build something else. So kind of how did you get involved into this next domain development?
Yeah, so from that, I was looking for trends. I'm the type that I don't like to just build for building's sake, to learn. I stumble upon a huge roadblock whenever I'm just trying to build to learn. I have to be building something that is relevant, something that I'm saying my time will be well spent. So I was looking for what to do. And in that time, I had applied for OpenAI's beta program to get GPT-3 access. And just around the time that I was tinkering with Bubble, it came through.
Wow,
No,
talking about impeccable timing.
right. And I had an epiphany. No code will be that much more powerful if AI was involved, right?
Mm,
And then I
okay.
started going after that concept. And I saw a few no code businesses going into the AI space, but it wasn't like how I had thought they would, in that no code democratizes technology, but these no code applications still had somewhat of a hurdle. You still had to learn something, you still had to
Right.
integrate something. So I was like, the future of AI is no code. When AI comes into the hands of an average citizen and they can manipulate AI without knowing machine learning or code, right? So I wanted to marry the two. So GPT-3 access, no code. What do I do? Bubble allows me to call APIs. So I set out on a journey to figure out how to get this done. I thought it would have been extremely difficult. Within one day, I built an app completely with OpenAI's API.
So let's go back. So you got Open API. So you have the Open API. What is it? What did you say it was?
GPT-3.
G who?
GPT-3.
GPT-3. My goodness. Lord, say that like 50 times fast. I can't even say it once. So you get this. So you got Open API. You also have Bubble, and you know that you have two unique things that can likely integrate together. But then how did you wind up on virtual ghostwriting? Like, where does that concept come from? Or did Bubble or Open API, did it lead you to think that?
Okay, so in connecting the API to Bubble, I had to do a little reading. I hate to do it,
Mm,
but I had to do a little reading. And I went into OpenAI's documentation and I saw that they offered, text completion. What could I build around text completion? Everybody knows about chatbot.
right.
You know, you're chatting to, a bot that has been trained on the company's policies, they have information. But wouldn't it be great if in building a website, I have the copy for the website generated for me? I'm a builder. I don't like to think about copy. And
Mm,
I write blogs on flip web domains.
right.
And that writer's block when you just type in the title and you're like, what should be the first word?
He
Should
said the
I
struggle's real.
should I Google something? And I was like, maybe this thing can generate articles, maybe it can generate blogs. So I was like, copywriter, I'll call it a copyright. But moving past that, I was saying, pushing the idea, maybe it could generate an entire book. Maybe AI will reach to a point where an entire book is generated just feeding a couple of concepts. And I went to Google and I was like, what do you call something that writes a book for you?
Ghostwriter.
Ghostwriter. I never knew that existed. So I was saying, okay, I'm the first one to know about this. There are probably a few ghostwriters out there. Let me just register ghostwriter.something. And I was surprised to see that Ghostwriter was very popular.
Yeah. And actually, it's been around. It's been around offline for quite a while because there have been many books that have been written by ghostwriters, people paying other people to take their journal and turn it into a book, or take their half-written thoughts or even completed thoughts and turning it into a book or so. So this is interesting. So then you intersect at Ghostwriter online, and then what was your next thought once you figured out, oh, people have been registering ghostwriter.com and so on, different variations?
And my domain name brain kind of kicked in. I wanted the best domain name, but I didn't have the capital to buy the right name. So I was like, I know about exact match.coms, and let me try it, digitalghostwriter.com. That was taken. So I said, okay, virtual has seen a lot of sales in 2020. We see a lot of virtual registrations. Virtualghostwriter.com. It's a .com, 3 words, yes, a little bit long, but persons would remember it.
Right.
Yeah, and so I registered the name, $9.
Back to hand reg.
Back to hand registration and going back to domain names. This shows me that stepping out of the community for a while and developing a tool, my first thought is not to buy the premium name. When I generate enough income, I'll buy the premium name. But it's never the first thought, being without capital. That's an important point to me.
Yeah. And you're just trying to get a name that's good enough to prove the concept.
Yeah, and I'm a domain investor. Would I even be able to sell virtual ghostwriter,
True.
About that. So I hand registered the name and, put it on top of the app. And I did a soft launch on Twitter. I ensured that I monetized it upfront because I wanted to prove that, maybe this concept was valuable. But
now, how did you determine the pricing though for that monetization of the tool?
On Twitter, I had about less than 100 followers on my personal page. So I had no code makers, and I was launching now as Stephen Campbell. I had less than 100 followers, and most of them were no coders. Doing the soft launch on Twitter, it got some traction. I was like, okay. And I didn't see anybody else talking about merging GPT-3 with a no-code tool. So this was the first time it was done, as far as I know.
Right.
And, I did a post and Bubble commented on it.
So you then basically took and documented your process and how you integrated Bubble and the OpenAPI. So I guess you documented that?
Yeah. Since then, I've had a lot of questions, and I went and I did a video. I have a lot of notes on how it's very intricate. Although it's no code, there's a lot of logic involved. And I've had a lot of experiences once the users started going up that really challenged me to, as a non-coder, there's a lot of value in coding. I'll never put down a coder because we stand on their shoulders. But it kind of pushed me to do some workflows that I never knew was possible. I have some very intricate ways of getting this thing done. And, most of that will remain a secret until, time catches up with me and someone figures it out. But I did a video on it as well. And I, put up a tutorial in the form of a course on Gumroad. And that has been seeing some traction as well.
let's take a step back. So you do virtual ghostwriter, you put it out. So you put this tool that took you a day to get done.
Mhm.
You basically do this soft release, you put it on Twitter, it gains traction. So I'm assuming you got paid subscribers from
Not
day one.
not on Twitter. So I got signups on Twitter.
Okay, so nobody was paying, but people were, I guess, taking the exploratory road there.
Right. They were trying it out. By that time, I was giving persons 3 attempts, and they were saying, "Hey, this is a decent tool." But they were just tinkering around with it.
Right.
And then I said, "Let me try Reddit." I saw this guy Daniel Vasayo post on. That's the first time I was thinking about posting anything on Reddit. And I found a subreddit with GPT-3, and I made a post. And I went to sleep, and I woke up with about 2 subscribers. I was like,
So two paid subscribers or just two?
8 subscribers.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
like,
You got
okay,
18. You got $18 coming your way.
yeah, okay, that's something. And I'm bear in mind that these persons were opting into a monthly payment,
Okay. So this is monthly revenue. 20
monthly revenue,
a month.
right? So I was like, all right,
We can go to McDonald's.
yeah. So I share the progress on Twitter, and I get a couple more subscribers. I was like, okay, until I reached $100 gross revenue, monthly recurring eventually. And I started talking about it, went on LinkedIn, did a couple more Reddit posts until I got to $200. I was like, maybe there's some value in this. I said, why not make this official? And I went back and I changed some things on the app. I did some upgrades, did some
Right.
improvements, made it a little bit more presentable. And I decided to launch on Product Hunt.
So you took the show on the road to Product Hunt.
Product Hunt. I was like, if there's any validation, it would come from these guys at Product Hunt, because they're not easy at all. And I did another launch on Product Hunt, and it got 8 upvotes. A previous app that I did, 8 upvotes, and I was like, I'm not expecting anything. I did the launch on Product Hunt on the 30th, and I went to sleep, and I woke up to like Twitter notification. Somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, your app got featured." And this is somebody I don't know on Twitter. Your app got featured on Product Hunt. When I went on to Product Hunt, number 3 product of the day.
And that is, so hold up. So that's a hard feat to even get to happen, to wind up number 1, number 2, number 3.
Yeah.
And so you went to sleep on the 30th, but you woke up on the 31st and the world had changed.
Yeah. I woke up to so many emails because I know when someone signs up. I know when someone subscribes.
Right.
So I'm seeing subscribers coming in, signups coming in, and random emails from persons like, fix this, fix that, fix this, fix that. And a lot of Twitter comments. And it was like 200, no, it was like 100 plus upvote. I was like, this is crazy, because I thought I was number 3 the previous day.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, I ended number 3. But then eventually I saw number 4, and I realized that I was in the day trying to make it. So I sent out an email blast to all of my previous users. Hey, launch on Product Hunt, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Let's get this thing upvoted. And it ended at number 5 product of the day. And I got some strange, crazy emails. Persons with interest, persons trying to find out
license.
Yeah, how did you do this? How did you not write any code? And someone on Twitter said, I thought you built this from scratch. I was like, yeah, I built it from scratch, but just without code. You get what I'm saying? So, it was pretty amazing, and it kind of sparked something in the no-code community.
Obviously, you see all this excitement. You got emails flying around. You got requests for upgrades and updates. But the real question is, did you go check the bank account?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
And so
Definitely.
now so that was basically, I mean, at the time of this recording, it's January 6th. So this has all happened
Right.
within what, a week? I guess what, 7 to 10 business days since
Right.
you did
Right.
all of this stuff?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I've been having subscribers every day since then.
And not only that, it's not a one-time thing. So it is a monthly subscription that people are likely to use. Now, what's interesting is, so we've talked about a bit of the monetization side, but even because I'm looking at the site now, virtualghostwriter.com, it really breaks down to doing three different things. So you can write an initial thought in, hit complete, and it'll spit some ideas back to you,
Yeah.
or you can actually type in a question, hit answer, and then it spits, I guess, content back based on what you put in. And then the final thing is you can even take a long article, paste it, copy and paste it in there, hit summarize, and
Mhm.
it'll give you a summary of that article. So there's really three different avenues. But knowing myself in terms of developing websites, knowing how difficult it is at times to produce content, I mean, you've pretty much, instead of saying, hey, go out to Fiverr, go out to Upwork, freelancer, whatever, go hire a team of writers. You're basically doing this using AI, and the person, if they're a good editor, I mean, they can throw a couple of thoughts in there, get some content back, probably add to it, and they've got an article.
Right. So there's this feature I launched a little bit before I did the product hunt, where you can input sections of previously written articles
Hmm.
and get some kind of contextual output based on what you have inputted. So that's the right article section. So I've had persons reach out to me and say, hey, I just made a blog post without editing the output that I got from your app. And it gave me exactly what I wanted. Now there are some questions around that, is that plagiarism? Because you don't know the source. And it's
Right.
a very important question.
Right.
And I bring it up because I would say the responsibility is on the author to say that this was generated with AI. I think in my interview process, they made it very clear to me that their intention is not to pass something off as human. The concept is you generate an idea and then you go from there and you can do your content generation,
Mm,
right? Yeah,
that
so
makes
that's
sense. That makes sense because you're basically saying, look, as a human, we're not off the hook for
right,
actually checking what we're working with.
right.
And so even if that means, hey, you need to go cite someone else, then it's up to us to basically go do the work. Because,
Right.
like you said, this is just basically AI generated. So it's not saying that it's uniquely generated, although some folks will probably argue with that. But nevertheless, it's a tool that basically you're offering a service, and
Right.
it's up to that end user basically to use it at their own risk.
Correct.
So, like, where are things at today from a revenue standpoint? Because you got virtualghostwriter.com that's kicking in monthly revenue, and then now you have the course. Now, does the course, is it a one-time thing or is it a monthly subscription too?
From a revenue standpoint, I'm just approaching the $400 monthly recurring revenue point with about 770 paying customers, approaching $700 gross revenue. And interestingly enough, I've had a lot of offers related to the app. That kind of peripheral advantage
Right.
because of what the app does. I've had other offers, monetary offers, and still kind of going through those. Some of them have fallen through because it didn't quite align with where I wanted to go. It's very interesting that this number one question came up. How did you build this app without code? Right. So I set out to answer the question, but without giving away value for free. I said, okay, let me just jump on the Canva, do a template or a post advertising that content, and I kind of just say what would be an appropriate price. I put $30 on it, And I said I would just share this with just 5 first. I'm giving them a time advantage.
Right.
You have to figure this out when you get access. So I share with 5 persons. I just made a post on Twitter. Well, first of all, someone reached out via DM and I sent them the link first. And the guy bought it right away, $30. I was like, okay.
So you knew you were on to something then.
All right, $30, fine. Posted it on Twitter and Bubble retweeted it.
To all of their followers.
To about 15, well, I don't know what the sum total is, but I know Bubble has about 15K followers. And within like 15 minutes, it was sold out.
Yeah, they have like a little over 15,000 followers. So they retweeted, it sells out, and then like, what are you thinking? Like, do you reopen it, or was there even requests for it?
Because I said I probably didn't think about it clearly enough. Maybe I should have just opened it. But someone jumps into the convo section and says, "Hey, I am interested. Could you open this back up?" I'm like, but these 5 guys bought it.
Yeah.
With a limited option. They knew that it would sell out, I guess, or they were saying that, that kind of psychological impact. That,
right.
Limited. Let me opt in. It would be unfair to open it again.
True.
So
True.
I said, okay, I have to raise,
especially at the same price.
Yeah, I have to raise the price. So I raised the price to $60. Post the link in the comment section right below the first post, and I get a purchase, one purchase. Okay, fine. You seem to have bought it. I go to sleep and I wake up the next day and I'm seeing 2 more purchases. Like, okay, something is happening here. And then I make the post the next day on Twitter, and it approaches selling out, and I increase the number, and I got a couple more, opt-ins.
Right.
So currently it's at 450, and that's the pre-order. I just released it to the persons who pre-ordered. I'm about to make a post, and I'm about to see where it goes. I'm not sure, but let's see where it goes.
And then obviously you got folks that are listening now that probably they have ideas and want to know, well, shoot, how in the world do you put Bubble and this OpenAPI? How do you integrate them together? So who knows, what may happen, my man. I mean, here it is. You've gone from domain investor turned doggone domain developer, entrepreneur, all within 7 to 10 business days. Now, obviously you were looking for revenue, so you solved your capital issue to a certain extent, and it's still growing. Right. And so how do you think that this will help you, in terms of domain investing, or are you even going to look back at domain investing? Are you going to keep developing at this point?
As I said, I'm already sold on domain names. I've seen too much to go back.
He said, I've been exposed too much to go back.
Too much to go back. So I'm sold on domain names, but I'm approaching now the route where I take the long road. I acquire a decent name,
right,
and I get it into the hands of someone who is willing to pay for that value instead of
being pressed to sell so quickly.
Right.
I see. And so really you've got something now that's actually working for you in terms of the course, in terms of virtualghostwriter.com, that's right. Bringing in income, that's allowing you to, one, be able to do renewals, but as well likely to level up now and be able to step into that 3-4 figure range when the time's right. Right. And so, it's kind of coming together. It's hand in hand, kind of the old hand and glove move here.
Right. And I would say I'm at a point where persons wouldn't even want to share this journey because they're saying, I'm not successful yet. I haven't seen some 4-figure revenue like, some of these other software as a service guys. And I'm like, it's not even a risk.
Right.
It's not even a risk for me to say this and to talk about this state of the journey, because I've been to a place where I didn't have the capital to even register names, Mm-hmm. It's not risky for me. I have nothing to lose. That's what that does for you. When you have nothing to lose, you will share easily, because I have seen what is possible, and I'm confident that what I'm doing is going to turn over. As a matter of fact, the level of success, the bar of success that I've set for myself, I've already gotten there.
Gotcha.
I've already, in my mind, I've hit the bar, and I'm now above the bar. So it's not even risky for me.
Man, I can't wait to actually check back with you here in like a year or so, just to see how things are going. But wrapping up, man, what would be your advice to someone starting their journey in domain investing, domain development, and or entrepreneurship? Like, where should they start?
Never give up. Learn from persons in the space, because there's one guy that I follow that I've learned a lot from, Daniel Vasayo. Learning the psychology of human beings, learning how people respond, learning how people buy. As it pertains particularly to domain names, I would say every investor goes through that period where they hand reg. And it's not evil, because the lessons learned from it, are invaluable. It's necessary. And I wouldn't give a particular strategy for anybody starting in entrepreneurship or starting online, but just to find that thing that you're passionate about. I'm not even able to articulate to my wife what is it exactly in specific detail that I should be doing now. I say to her, I want to be an internet entrepreneur, working from home and making an income, and that's it.
And that's what you've done. I mean, if I were to put it into words, I said, Stephen, he stumbled up on this NoCode makers, movement, if you will, that led you to Bubble. But then you were like, well, what can I do with this thing? You took a moment to go through these couple examples, which then sparked an idea about the OpenAPI. You saw and said, well, can I marry the two easily? Like you said, you were a tinkerer, that you married two things together and it solved a problem that people were willing to pay for. And from that standpoint, I go, man, it's like wash, rinse, repeat. How many more industries, how many more things could you actually go do that to, marrying Bubble and this OpenAPI?
Right. OpenAI.
Oh, yeah. OpenAI. Sorry.
OpenAI has announced something recently that will blow everything out of the water. Text prompts that generate images, illustrated images. And when I see that, the world is now wide open to the possibilities of artificial intelligence. It's just a matter of access, and then coding would have been a hurdle.
Right.
And now with this concept, it's no longer a hurdle. So it's just up to your creativity. And to be very honest, capital is not a huge problem. You can, with much resilience and much endurance, launch something and ship something that can be valuable to a lot of persons.
So with virtualghostwriter.com, you're at the tune of roughly about $400 a month, but the expense of running Bubble is what, like $25 a month, something like that?
$29 a month for Bubble. And we pay credits at OpenAI. But the way I have structured it, it more than pays for itself.
Wow.
That's it.
Well, last but not least, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners in case they want to get in contact with you about, Bubble, OpenAI, any other, things in regards to domain investing and development? Like how should they go about doing so?
The first thing you can do is buy my course. Buy my course.
Well said, businessman. Well said.
I'm on LinkedIn, Stephen Campbell on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. You can follow me if you're from the domain investing community. Flip Web Domains, that's the handle, at Flip Web Domains. You can find my other contact sources at steppocampbell.com. STEPO Campbell, CAMPBELL.com, steppocampbell.com. And you can contact me. I'm I will do some consultations on, Bubble, OpenAI, based on the feedback that I've been getting.
Well, that's awesome. There you have it. You hear how to get in contact. My man, he's throwing in domain investing, development. Now he's a consultant, all within the last 7 to 10 business days. This is awesome, Stephen. Awesome. And congratulations. So with that, we're out of time. Stephen, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your entrepreneurial experience.
Thank you very much, Alvin. And thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Likewise, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.